Okatachi Afrifa had spent over a decade in the United States, but his heart never left Ghana. He worked tirelessly, ensuring that his family, both extended and nuclear, never lacked anything. His sacrifices were endless. He sent money for school fees, medical bills, and family upkeep. But his greatest investment was in his brother, Asante. "Asante, I trust you," Okatachi had once said over a phone call. "I'm sending you money. Build me a house so when I return, I have a place to stay." "Brother, you don't even have to ask. I would never betray you," Asante had assured him. Time after time, Okatachi sent money. Not just for the house, but also to help Asante establish himself. He even ensured their mother lived comfortably. "Take care of Ma," he had said. "Make sure she never lacks anything." And Asante had agreed. But loyalty is a fragile thing when tested by greed. One evening, after years of hard work, Okatachi finally returned home. He stood at the gate of the house he had sacrificed so much to build. His heart swelled with emotions, pride, nostalgia, longing. He knocked. A few minutes passed before the door creaked open. Asante stood there, his eyes wide with shock. "Okatachi," he exclaimed, forcing a smile. "You didn't tell me you were coming." "I wanted to surprise you," Okatachi chuckled. "It's good to be home." "Ah yes, come in, Asante said hesitantly. "You must be tired from your journey. Rest for the night." But something felt off. The warmth Okatachi expected was absent, and in the shadows of the house, a secret was waiting, one that would shatter him. The next morning, as the golden rays of the sun crept through the windows, Asante sat on the veranda sipping his tea. His mind was restless. He had barely slept the night before. The unexpected arrival of Okatachi had unsettled him. For years, he had lived a lie, and now that lie was dangerously close to being exposed. He turned as he heard footsteps. Okatachi, looking tired but relieved, joined him outside. "Asante," he said, stretching his arms. "It's been a long time since I breathed in this fresh Ghanaian air. Nothing like home, huh?" Asante forced a chuckle. "Yeah, nothing like home." He hesitated before adding, "So tell me, brother, what brings you back? You didn't sound like a man planning to return when we last spoke." Okatachi sighed deeply, his face darkening with pain. "I never planned to come back like this, Asante. I was doing well, working hard, making a life for myself, but I was using someone else's documents." Asante's eyes widened slightly, but he quickly masked his reaction. "Go on," he said, pretending to be concerned. "Someone tipped off the security agency," Okatachi continued. "I was arrested, deported, and everything I owned was seized. I came back empty-handed. I have nothing left." He looked at Asante, his voice filled with desperation. "Brother, I need a fresh start. I want to stay here. I want to find a job. And if you'll allow me, I'd love to work with you in the business I helped you set up." Asante's grip on his teacup tightened. His pulse raced. This was worse than he feared. For years, he had told friends and neighbors that he was the one building the house. He had basked in their admiration, enjoyed the respect, and even used Okatachi's money to fund his own lavish lifestyle. He had convinced their mother that he was the more responsible son, the one who took care of the family. And now, Okatachi was here, claiming ownership of his house. It was a devastating blow. For a moment, silence hung between them. Then, Asante forced a smile. "Ah, my brother," he said, patting Okatachi's shoulder. "It's unfortunate what happened, but don't worry. You're home now. We will figure something out." But deep in his heart, Asante knew He had no intention of letting Okatachi reclaim what was rightfully his, not after all these years, not after all the lies. That evening the air in the house was heavy with tension. Mame Dansoa sat on an old wooden chair in the living room, her frail body wrapped in a faded cloth. Age had not been kind to her, and neither had life. She looked up weakly as Asante called Okatachi into the room. Okatachi entered, a hopeful smile still lingering on his face, despite the exhaustion from his journey. He had expected warmth, understanding, perhaps even an apology from his brother for the cold welcome. But the moment he saw the hard look in Asante's eyes, he knew something was wrong. "Asante, Mame," he greeted, taking a seat. Asante cleared his throat and leaned back, folding his arms across his chest. "Okatachi, I have thought about this whole situation," he said, his voice calm but laced with something sinister. "I don't know why you wasted all those years abroad, only to return empty-handed. You should have planned better. You should have done something meaningful with your life." Okatachi's brow furrowed. "Brother, I didn't choose to come back this way. You know that." "That's not my concern," Asante cut him off. "The fact remains, you are here now, and I am not willing to let you stay in this house that I built with my own sweat." Okatachi's stomach twisted. His fingers dug into the arms of the chair. "What are you saying, Asante?" "I'm saying you have a week to find somewhere else to stay," Asante said, his words cutting deep. "This is my house, and I don't want you here." Okatachi turned to their mother, desperation in his voice. "Mami, tell him the truth. You know the truth." Mame Dansoa sighed heavily, her eyes filled with conflict. She was old, sick, and tired. The truth was a dangerous thing for her. For years she had believed Asante was the one taking care of her, sending her money, ensuring she had food and medicine. If she sided with Okatachi now, the son who had returned with nothing, who would take care of her? "Okatachi, my son," she said softly, "if Asante says he cannot accommodate you, then you must find another place to stay." Okatachi felt like the ground beneath him had crumbled. "Mame, after everything, after all the money I sent, after all the sacrifices I made, this house is mine." Asante chuckled darkly. "You say the house is yours? Do you have any proof? Any documents in your name? You know I sent you the money to build this place." Okatachi shot back, his voice rising. "Do you have proof?" Asante repeated, his voice cold. There was silence, a cruel, suffocating silence. "I see," Asante smirked. "If you continue insisting on this nonsense, I will deal with you, Okatachi. Don't push me." Okatachi clenched his fists, his heart pounding. He looked at his mother, then back at his brother. He had never felt so alone in his life. The betrayal cut deeper than any blade. "This isn't over," he muttered. "I will not be thrown out of my own house like a beggar." Asante leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. "Then let's see what you can do about it." After a week of enduring the cold stares and sharp words from Asante, Okatachi realized that fighting over the house was not worth it. His own blood brother had turned against him, and their mother, whether out of fear or selfishness, had chosen Asante's side. It was painful, but what could he do? He had no legal documents proving ownership, no allies to fight for him. He was alone. On the final day, he packed his belongings into a small suitcase. There wasn't much, just a few clothes, documents, and the remnants of a life that had once been filled with dreams. As he stood at the door, he turned to Asante one last time. "I hope you sleep well in this house, brother, but remember, the foundation of this home was built with betrayal, and karma never forgets an address. Asante only scoffed, crossing his arms. Save your wisdom for someone who needs it, Okatachi, and don't come back. With a heavy heart, Okatachi walked away, not looking back. He had nowhere to go except to his wife. She was the one person he had left, or so he thought. His wife had been in Ghana for years, running the construction materials business they had planned together. It was lucrative, successful, exactly the kind of future they had envisioned. When they were abroad, they had agreed that she would return home first, set up the business, and prepare for when Okatachi would eventually come back. But things had not gone as planned. When he arrived at their home, his wife stood at the doorway, arms folded, a deep frown on her face. There was no warmth, no relief, no excitement at seeing the man she had once loved. "What's wrong?" Okatachi asked, confused. She sighed, shaking her head. "So, what exactly do you expect me to do now?" He furrowed his brows. "What do you mean?" "You were supposed to come back as a man with money, Okatachi," she said, her tone sharp. "Not as a deportee with nothing. Do you know how much effort I put into this business? Do you know how hard I've worked to maintain it? And now you're back here empty-handed, expecting me to take care of you?" Okatachi felt like he had been slapped. "What are you saying? This was our dream. We built this together. I worked all those years to make sure you had everything you needed to set up this business, and now you're acting like I had nothing to do with it?" She scoffed. "Yes, you worked, and you wasted all your money on your family. You sent money to your brother, to your mother, to everyone except yourself. Now look at you, good for nothing, a man who couldn't even secure his own future." His chest tightened with pain. He could barely breathe. "So, what are you saying?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She exhaled loudly. "I'm saying I can't accommodate a failure. Go back to your family, the same people you sacrificed everything for. See if they will take care of you." Okatachi stood there, frozen. The woman he had loved, the one he had trusted the most, had abandoned him when he needed her the most. For the second time in a week, he found himself homeless. As he walked away, the weight of betrayal crushed him. His brother had taken his house. His wife had taken his dreams. His mother had turned her back on him. He had nothing, nothing except the bitter taste of regret. Life had taken a cruel turn for Okatachi. With nowhere to go and no one willing to help him, he decided to apply for a job as a security officer in Accra. Security jobs were among the easiest to acquire in Ghana, and within 2 days, he was employed. But while the job itself was simple, the struggles that came with it were anything but. Nights were brutal. The sharp sting of mosquito bites tormented him as he stood guard, trying to stay awake in the stillness of the night. Each hour felt like a battle between exhaustion and duty, but the hardest part wasn't the sleepless nights. It was the emptiness that followed after work. With no place to call home, Okatachi had no choice but to sleep in an unfinished building. The cold cement floor was his bed, and his folded jacket served as his pillow. Some nights, he lay awake staring at the cracked ceiling, wondering how everything had gone so wrong. One evening, as he walked to work, fate twisted the knife deeper. He spotted his brother Asante driving past in a sleek, luxurious car, the kind Okatachi once dreamed of owning. Their eyes met briefly, and for a second, Okatachi hoped his brother would stop. Hoped that maybe, just maybe, Asante would offer him a ride, or even ask how he was surviving. But Asante simply looked away and sped past, pretending not to see him. Okatachi stood still for a moment, swallowing the lump in his throat. His brother, the man he had trusted with everything, was now living in luxury, all thanks to his hard-earned money, while he struggled to survive. The next morning, exhausted after his shift, Okatachi trudged down the street, hoping to find a corner where he could rest. That's when he spotted a familiar face, Paul, an old friend from years ago. "Paul?" Okatachi called out. Paul turned and his face lit up with surprise. "Hey, Okatachi, is that really you?" "It's me, my brother," Okatachi said, forcing a weak smile. Paul's smile quickly faded as he noticed Okatachi's worn-out uniform, his tired eyes, and the dejected look on his face. He knew things weren't well. "Ah, but what happened to you?" Paul asked with concern. Okatachi sighed. "It's a long story. I've lost everything, Paul. My brother took my house, my wife rejected me, and now I'm just surviving." Paul shook his head in disbelief. Life can be cruel." For a moment, they both stood in silence, memories of better days hanging between them. Paul remembered the time when he had hit rock bottom, when his job as a factory supervisor ended, and he couldn't even pay his daughter's school fees. In his desperation, he had called Okatachi, asking for help. "Brother," Paul had pleaded over the phone back then, "I know things are tough for you too, but please, my daughter's school is threatening to send her home. If you have anything at all, please help me." Without hesitation, Okatachi had sent Paul twice the amount he requested. That act of kindness had kept Paul's daughter in school, and though Paul's life had since taken a rough turn, he had managed to build a 2-room house where he now lived with his wife and daughter. It wasn't much, but it was shelter, something Okatachi desperately lacked. Looking at his old friend now, homeless, tired, and broken, Paul felt a deep sense of guilt. "Okatachi," Paul finally spoke, "I don't have much, but come home with me. At least you'll have a roof over your head and some warm food to eat." Tears welled up in Okatachi's eyes. He had never expected this, not after all the betrayal he had faced. "You'd really do that for me?" he asked, his voice cracking. "You once did it for me," Paul replied with a smile. "Now it's my turn." For the first time in a long while, Okatachi felt something he had nearly forgotten: hope. Paul's house was far from complete. The unpainted walls were rough, and the wooden doors barely held in place. Some parts of the roof still had gaps, letting in cold air at night, and there was no proper flooring, just the raw, uneven cement. But for Okatachi, it was a palace compared to sleeping in an unfinished building. When Paul arrived home with Okatachi, he hesitated before calling out to his wife. "Diana, we have a guest," he said, his voice uncertain. Auntie Diana, a strong yet kind woman, stepped out, wiping her hands on her old wrapper. She took one look at Okatachi, his tired eyes, his worn-out clothes, the sadness buried deep in his face, and without a second thought, she smiled warmly. "You're welcome, my brother," she said gently. "Any friend of my husband is my brother too." Paul swallowed hard. He hadn't even explained the situation yet. "Diana," he started, "Okatachi, he has nowhere to go. Life has been hard for him, but he once helped me when I was in my darkest moment. He paid our daughter's school fees when I had nothing. I can't turn my back on him now." Diana didn't even blink. She walked up to Okatachi and held his hands in hers. "Thank you," she said softly, surprising him. "For what?" Okatachi asked, puzzled. "For helping my husband when he needed it most," she said. "You are family now. Come inside." Tears welled up in Okatachi's eyes. He had expected reluctance, hesitation, or maybe even resentment for being an extra mouth to feed in an already struggling household. But instead, Diana had welcomed him like a long-lost brother. From that day, life wasn't easy, but for the first time in a long time, Okatachi felt human again. Diana made sure there was always food for him, even if it meant stretching what little they had. She never made him feel like a burden. Each morning before he left for his shift, she would wash his security uniform and polish his boots until they shone. "A man should always look presentable," she would say with a smile. And when he returned late at night, exhausted and broken, she always had something warm for him to eat. Even though they were struggling, even though their house was unfinished, Diana never once made him feel unwanted. One night, as he sat outside in the dim moonlight, Okatachi couldn't hold back his emotions anymore. He turned to Paul, his voice shaking. "Brother, I don't know how to thank you and your wife," he said. "I lost everything, my house, my wife, my dignity. But you've given me more than a roof over my head. You've given me a family." Paul placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "Life is unpredictable, Okatachi. Today it's you. Tomorrow it could be me again. We help each other. That's what real brothers do." For 3 months, Okatachi lived under Paul and Diana's roof. It wasn't luxury, but it was filled with love, something he hadn't felt in a long time. He worked hard, saved the little he could, and regained some strength in his spirit. Meanwhile, across town, Asante's once glamorous life was beginning to show cracks. The money that had once flowed so easily was now trickling. With no new funds coming in from his deported brother, his business began to suffer. He'd spent money recklessly, lavish parties, unnecessary luxuries, impressing people who didn't truly care for him. Now he was struggling to make ends meet. Desperate to stay afloat, he applied for a loan from the bank. It was risky, but he had no choice. He needed to import new goods to keep his business alive. The bank approved his request, giving him a substantial amount to invest in his next shipment. But the question remained, would his reckless habits destroy him before he could turn things around? Fate was watching, and karma was patient. One unfortunate day, Asante's world crumbled in the blink of an eye. His wife had prepared food and was heating up some stew before leaving for work. In her hurry, she scooped some of the stew while it was still on fire and rushed out, completely forgetting to turn off the gas. An hour later, as she sat in her office, a sudden fear gripped her chest. She had forgotten to turn off the gas. Her heart pounded as she grabbed her phone and frantically called Asante. "Asante! Asante! Please, rush home now. I think I left the gas on." Asante, stuck in the choking traffic of Accra, cursed under his breath. "What? You mean you didn't turn it off?" "I forgot. Please go and check now," she pleaded. But Asante was helpless. The traffic was devastating. Honking cars, impatient drivers, and unmoving roads stretched ahead of him. As he tried to maneuver his way through, his phone rang again. This time, it wasn't his wife. A neighbor's panicked voice filled his ears. "Asante, your house is on fire. We tried calling the fire service, but they're not here yet." His hands went cold. "What?" he gasped. "Asante, your house is burning. Hurry!" Asante's mind went blank. His heart pounded as he tried to speed up, but the traffic was unforgiving. Minutes felt like hours, and by the time he finally reached his neighborhood, it was too late. Flames engulfed his home. Everything he had worked for, his expensive furniture, his luxurious cars, his imported goods, everything was being devoured by the raging fire. The fire service arrived, but they were late. Too late. The fire had already consumed everything. Asante stood there, watching his dreams turn to ashes. His house, his business, his pride, gone in the blink of an eye. From that moment, his downfall began. With no home and no savings to fall back on, he and his wife were forced to rent a single-room, self-contained apartment. It was humiliating. The man who once lived in wealth and luxury was now managing in a small, cramped space. Meanwhile, Okatachi had a plan. One evening, after months of struggle, Okatachi called a meeting with Paul and Auntie Diana. They sat in the small but warm home, the air heavy with emotion. Paul looked concerned. "Okatachi, is everything okay?" Okatachi smiled faintly, but tears welled in his eyes. He took a deep breath before speaking. "My brother rejected me. My own mother turned her back on me. My wife abandoned me. But you—" His voice broke and he wiped his eyes. "You, Paul, and you, Auntie Diana, took me in when I had nothing. You never treated me as a burden. Even in your struggles, you showed me love. There is no love in this world. But if you find love, it is from a stranger." Paul and Diana exchanged glances, deeply moved. "I want you to know," Okatachi continued, "that I am not as poor as I seem." Paul's eyebrows lifted. "What do you mean?" "I did not return to Ghana because I was deported and helpless. I came to Ghana to see if my family had made good use of what I gave them, so that we could build something great together. I was planning to build an estate here, something big, something that would last for generations. But I needed someone trustworthy to manage it while I stayed in the US. Paul's mouth dropped open. "So, you mean—" "Yes, Paul," Okatachi nodded. "I came to test those I trusted. And my brother, he failed me. He took what I gave him and wasted it. But you gave me love when I had nothing. Now, I want you and Auntie Diana to help me manage the estate." Diana gasped, covering her mouth. "Oh, Okatachi, are you serious?" "I have already acquired the land," Okatachi said, smiling through his tears. "Now, I want to build something big, and I want to build it with people who have pure hearts." Paul shook his head, overwhelmed. "Brother, I don't even know what to say." "Say nothing," Okatachi smiled. "Just accept." Tears flowed freely that night. Paul and Diana, who had once struggled to survive, were now about to step into a future they had never imagined. Fate had tested hearts, and in the end, it had rewarded those who had stayed true. Months passed, and true to his word, Okatachi transformed Paul's modest two-room house into a grand mansion. It stood tall and magnificent, a symbol of gratitude and second chances. The unfinished walls were now coated with fine paint, the floors gleamed with polished tiles, and the once leaking roof was replaced with a sturdy, elegant one. The house had everything: a spacious hall, a modern kitchen, and even a guest wing. Paul and Diana could hardly believe it. Their once humble home was now a mansion, all because they had shown kindness to a man when he had nothing. But that wasn't all. On a bright afternoon, Okatachi stood before them, holding out 2 car keys. "Paul," he said, handing over the first key, "this is for you. You need to move around easily to manage the estate." Paul's hands trembled as he took the keys. "Brother, this is too much." "It's not," Okatachi said with a smile. "And Auntie Diana," he turned to her, placing the second key in her hand, "this one is yours. You've done more for me than my own family ever did. You deserve this and more." Tears welled up in Diana's eyes. She had never imagined that kindness would be rewarded in such a grand way. "Thank you, Okatachi," she whispered, her voice breaking. As time passed, Okatachi's estate development company flourished. His vast land was now a hub of construction, with workers erecting modern apartments and houses. His name spread far and wide, and soon he was invited for a live interview on GTV to speak about his success. That evening, Asante and his wife sat in their small rented room, watching television as they ate their meager supper. When the GTV host announced the next guest, Asante nearly dropped his spoon. Joining us now is the CEO of one of Ghana's fastest-growing estate development companies, Mr. Okatachi Afrifa, the host said. The screen switched to show Okatachi standing proudly on a vast piece of land, with buildings under construction behind him. Beside him stood Paul, the same friend he had once helped during hard times. Asante's mouth went dry. His wife, too, froze in shock. "Is that not Okatachi?" she whispered. Asante clenched his jaw, gripping the arms of his chair. "It is," he muttered, his stomach twisting with regret. Meanwhile, Okatachi's ex-wife also heard the news. She sat on her bed, scrolling through social media, when she stumbled upon a post about Okatachi's rise to success. The words blurred in her vision as reality hit her like a sharp blade. The same man I rejected, the same man I called useless, now a millionaire? Her heart pounded. She had abandoned him because she thought he had no future. Now, she was the one living in regret. Desperate, Asante and his wife sought out Okatachi's ex-wife. She was already filled with shame when Asante approached her with an idea. "We need to apologize," Asante said, his voice urgent. "Maybe, just maybe, he will forgive us and help us. You know he has a good heart." She hesitated but knew Asante was right. "How do we even meet him?" she asked. "I know who can help," Asante replied. "Paul." The two of them went to Paul's mansion, the same house that Okatachi had transformed. Paul was surprised to see them but allowed them in. "We need your help, Paul," Asante pleaded. "We need to see Okatachi and apologize. We have made mistakes, and we regret everything." Paul sighed, shaking his head. "He doesn't need your apologies now. Where were you when he needed you?" "Please, Paul," Asante begged. "We just need a chance to make things right." Reluctantly, Paul arranged a meeting. On the day of the meeting, Asante and Okatachi's ex-wife arrived at a luxurious office inside the estate. The moment they saw Okatachi, they could hardly speak. He looked powerful, confident, far from the broken man they had rejected. Asante was the first to speak. "Brother," he started, his voice heavy, "I know I failed you. I betrayed you, and I have suffered because of it. The fire, the business collapse. I lost everything." He lowered his head. "I have learned my lesson." Okatachi remained silent, his expression unreadable. His ex-wife stepped forward next, tears in her eyes. "Okatachi, I was blinded by greed. I abandoned you when you needed me the most, and today I regret it more than anything." She sobbed. "I don't expect you to take me back. I only ask for your forgiveness." For a long moment, Okatachi said nothing. Then he took a deep breath and looked them both in the eyes. "I forgive you," he said, his voice steady. Asante and his ex-wife looked up, relief washing over their faces. "But," Okatachi continued, standing up, "I may forgive you, but I will never forget. Family only wants wealth. They reject the poor. You didn't want me when I had nothing, and now you return because I have everything." Tears streamed down Asante's face, but Okatachi's expression remained firm. He picked up his phone and pressed a button. Seconds later, 2 security guards entered. "See them out," Okatachi ordered. Asante and his ex-wife were stunned. "Please, Okatachi!" But the guards didn't hesitate. They firmly led them out of the office, ignoring their pleas. Asante turned one last time, his eyes pleading, "Brother, please." But Okatachi had already turned away. Despite everything, Okatachi still had a heart. He knew his mother was old and frail, and though she had chosen Asante over him, she was still his mother. He found her a new home, a comfortable place with enough space, and assigned a house help to take care of her. "She may have rejected me," he told Paul, "but I will not let her suffer in old age." And with that, Okatachi moved forward, leaving behind betrayal, heartbreak, and pain. He had built himself back up from nothing, and now he stood tall, a man who had faced life's worst storms and emerged stronger. His story was no longer one of tragedy, but of triumph. Life teaches us one great lesson. It's not always your family that will stand by you in your darkest moments, but sometimes strangers you once helped will come to your rescue when you least expect it. When you show love and kindness, don't limit it to only your family members. Help your friends, help strangers, help anyone who genuinely needs your support. Family ties are important, but do not be deceived into thinking that only your brothers, sisters, or relatives will be there for you in your time of need. Sometimes they are the very people who will turn their backs on you when you fall. It is much easier for a brother or sister to forget the good you did for them, but a stranger you helped in their moment of need will forever carry that love in their heart. This is why you should help others, not because you expect anything in return, but because kindness never goes unrewarded. One day, when life humbles you, when the people you trusted the most betray you, when the ones you sacrificed everything for reject you, those strangers you once helped may be the ones who give you a place to sleep, a warm meal, or even a second chance at life. As the Akan proverb says, when you extend a hand to lift someone up, you are also pulling yourself up. Help others, not because you are expecting a reward, but because the universe never forgets kindness. One day karma will speak for you in your time of trouble. So today, I urge you all, help the needy, support the weak, be a blessing in someone's life, and most importantly, do it from your heart. If you enjoyed this story and believe it carries a strong message, please give this video a like. Let us know in the comments where you are watching from, and if this story touched your heart, share it with your friends and family. And don't forget to subscribe to Anansi Web of Tales for more captivating and life-changing stories like this. Stay blessed and watch out for our next video.